Alright, so today's video we are going to adjust the cutting reel. So we're going to adjust that down to the bed knife. Now, I am definitely not a professional. I don't do this for a living. I just do this as a hobby. This is the way that I do it. I've done this to probably 10, 15 plus mowers now. Never had an issue. So just disclaimer, there are other ways of doing this, but this is the way that I do it. Before we even start adjusting our reel down to our bed knife, there's a couple of things that are somewhat crucial that must be done. So first of all, I like to put my gear on the side of the reel. Now basically you don't want to adjust your reel, get it all in nice position and everything, and then find that you have to tap your gear onto the side of the reel and potentially knock it out of place. If you knock it out of place, you basically you're gonna have to adjust your reel from start again. So put that on first. Once we've got that on, another handy tip to note is I'll always do this with the chains off. So this is a new build, but if you had this on an existing mower and you've just gone and got your reel sharpened and you put it back in, get all your chains back on, I would highly recommend doing this with the chains off. It ends up with a far more precise adjustment. So that's just what I do. Chains off all the time. Also, when your chains are off, if you lower your reel, you're not actually stretching your chains or anything like that. You'll quite often find that you'll have to adjust the tension of your chains every time you, almost every time you adjust your reel to bed knife. So a couple of things to note, but we'll start by putting our gear on first. Once we've got the gear on, then I'll sort of talk a little bit more about what I'm about to do with the reel. So, okay, so I will just say, while I'm doing this, I am actually going to apply some moly grease. So I'll put moly grease in the slot where the woodruff key goes. I'll put a little bit on the shaft, and I'll definitely put some on the thread. So that's what I'm about to do now. So yeah. Okay, so now I've got that on there finger tight. This is how I go about tightening up that nut. So that nut, when you go to tighten it, all it does is spin the reel. Now, how I overcome that is just with a small piece of timber. Now I wedge this timber through the reel, and then the other end sits on top of the sole plate. And then what that does is jams up the reel, but it also applies pressure to the rear side of the blade instead of the front side of the blade. Now you don't want to damage the front side of your blade, especially if you've just got a brand new sharpen on it. So that's how I do it. Now if you are going to do that, just be careful not to go crazy with that. There is potential for breaking out a section of your reel blade. So do it with caution, do it at your own risk, but this is just how I do it. Okay, so now we're at the point that I'm going to start adjusting my reel down to my bed knife. Now, there are endless debates online, all over the internet, about whether you should adjust your reel so it makes contact or if it makes no contact. Now, in my personal opinion, so I personally am going to adjust my reel and have my aim is to have no contact. However, I may end up with like minimal contact. So that's how I do my reels personally. However, my opinion on that whole matter is is this, right? So a cylinder mower is a precision machine. It's not your average mower, right? So because it's such a precise machine, it's going to need constant adjustment of the reel and maintenance for the whole mower, right? So I personally believe if a business was going to do this for you, that they should adjust the reel so it's making contact with the bed knife. Now, I'm only talking minimal amounts of contact. I'm not talking heaps of contact. I personally believe if you're a paying customer, that the business should adjust the reel so it's making contact with the bed knife. One, for the longevity of the adjustment. So if you're paid for something, you want it to last longer than someone that's doing their own work and can adjust it regularly. So generally, if you're paying someone to do it, you probably don't have the mechanical mind or skills to do it yourself. So you don't want it to, in a month's time you have to take it back and get it readjusted. You don't. I think it's unfair on the customer that they should have to continually pay month to month for someone else to adjust it. I feel like the business should adjust it in a way that it's going to give the longest, cleanest cut for the paying customer, if that makes sense. I personally think no contact is how it should be. However, that does require constant upkeep and adjustment. So my goal right now is to adjust this so we have absolutely no contact or bare minimal contact. If I do that, when I mow the grass, I will, each time I go to mow the grass, I'll check that my blade is still cutting paper. Is an excellent way to check. If it's not cutting paper, then I'll adjust it at that point. So this is how I go about adjusting my reel down to my bed knife. And first step, make sure your nuts, so the nuts that are holding your reel bearing housings in place, make sure they're loose. So if you do this while they're tight, there's a very, very good chance that you are going to break the little arm on your reel bearing housing. So first step by far is to loosen these nuts. Okay, so both nuts are loose. That will now allow the bearing housings to be adjusted up and down. So first step is to adjust one side of your reel. Now I personally do the side with the gear attached to it. So that's this side. Now what I like to do is spin the reel, and as I'm spinning the wheel, I'm screwing the screw down. As I'm screwing the screw down, I'm listening. So I'm listening for the blade to start making contact with that bed knife. So you'll hear it almost sounds like scissors. As soon as I hear that, I'm going to stop adjusting this bolt, and then I'm going to move to the other side and do the exact same thing. Start spinning the wheel, adjust our bolt here so the reel is dropping down to the bed knife. Once we've hit the bed knife again, you'll hear the exact same noise. So think of scissors, that's what it's going to sound like. And then at that point, I will tighten up the locking nut, which is underneath the bar here on the mower. Once I've tightened that up, I will then adjust the reel again. So I'll use a spanner and a screwdriver together and twist both the bolt and the nut, just an absolute minimal amount. And what that does, that'll raise the reel back up a tiny little bit, and then we'll get some paper and we'll see how we've gone. So watch along. So I'm not sure that you're going to be able to hear that on camera. However, it is making the smallest amount of contact. I'll tighten it up a little bit just so you can hear the noise. So hopefully you can hear that, but basically it just sounds like scissors. The slightest amount of contact. So what I like to do is raise this back up. Now I only raise it up a quarter of a turn of this nut, and then I'll move to the other side. So that just makes a little bit of clearance across the middle of the bed knife. Move to the other side and do the exact same process. Okay, so now I've adjusted both sides and I can hear that the reel is making minimal contact on both, hopefully evenly across the whole bed knife. At this point, I'll lift the mower up and get a piece of paper and just check all the way across the bed knife that the reel is in fact cutting a piece of paper. So a piece of paper is very similar to the thickness of a grass blade. So it's generally the standard. So the thinner the paper, the better, actually. Okay, so we're not quite cutting the paper. It's just folding the paper over. However, that just means that we need to go a little bit lower. So not very much. Okay, so some time's now passed. Basically, guys, it's a process. Adjust this side, adjust that side, keep going back and forward, back and forward, back and forward. You just want to keep doing it slowly, lightly. You don't want to go hard. If you go hard, you'll end up jamming your reel into your bed knife. You don't want to do that. So it is a bit of a process, but basically I've gotten it to a point where I can hear a scissor-like noise all the way across the bed knife. I have actually lifted it up and I have checked with a piece of paper that we are cutting paper all the way across that bed knife. So that's excellent. However, we're not done yet. So you can hear sort of scissor noise. We're not done yet. What we need to do now is tighten up these nuts. Once we've tightened up those nuts, what you're going to find is it will actually throw your bed knife out of position. So we'll then have to adjust it yet again. So definitely a process, but it's one worth doing. Okay, so we've tightened them both up. And you'll actually see I can't even move the bed knife anymore. So it has actually lowered the reel even more. So what we need to do now is raise the reel back up. Okay, so as you just saw, by turning the bolt and the nut at the same time, it will raise your reel up and down. And I feel like that's a very precise way of doing this. So as you can still hear, we have contact with the bed knife. It sounds like scissors. I want to now finally adjust the reel to the bed knife. So basically I'm going to keep raising this until I do not hear contact with the bed knife, and then start lowering it so I do hear contact. At the same time, I'm going to constantly adjust, or check rather, that I'm cutting paper across the bed knife, and in doing that, that's how we set the reel to the bed knife. So hopefully that is understandable for you guys. I know there's a lot of information. It's quite a hard, difficult video to a film, only because it takes so long to do this. If I did it in real time, the video would go for 45 minutes to an hour, which is no one wants to watch that long. So hopefully you've learned how to do it. This is how I do it. Please give me a like, give me a thumbs up, Facebook, leave me a comment. It would be greatly appreciated. So watch along, I'll get it to the end, and thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.